Crack the Swing, good sell. In Steven Seagal's On Deadly Ground, there's the famous scene in the bar where the oil miners are picking on the Indians, the Alaskan natives, and they start messing with Steven Seagal, and then he teaches Big Balls about how the cupcake has more power. And in that statement, after he just beats the Big Balls to a pulp, he says, "What does it take to change the essence of man?" And the guy started crying. So, I want to be a cupcake. It's turned into snowflake these days. But what does it take to change the essence of a Mormon? I have consistent guys, 2, occasionally 3, and then others join in, seeing their actions and want to replicate it, being incited by these original 2 to add to the thumbs downs on my videos. And these guys will never stop. As you can see, I'm not popular. Very few people are seeing my videos. But yet, these guys are consistent. They hover over my site specifically to put those 2 thumbs down so that everybody knows, stay away from this video, but it's too late, you've already given me a view. Unless YouTube has set it up so that if they beat me to the thumbs down, then less people will be triggered to see the video on their feeds, their recommended list. I don't know. YouTube's done something, and it's able to target me. That much I do know. So where does this come from? This utter hatred of me by Mormons. Comes from section 121, which is why it's mostly guys that do the hating. And it's talking about the rights of the priesthood, and that they may be conferred upon us, it is true, but when we undertake to cover our sins, gratify our pride, vain ambitions, exercise control or dominion or compulsion upon the souls of the children of men in any degree of unrighteousness. And it's strange that Mormons attack me thinking that I'm the one guilty of this. When, for example, the guys putting the thumbs down, they're covered with the internet. So they're putting a thumbs down, concealing their identity, covering their sins. And they're exercising control and dominion and compulsion upon me while they're covered up. And so how is it that Mormons can be so blind in thinking that they're obedient, they're in the right, they're following the Book of Mormon, when they're the villains in the story? When they're the ones that are attacking, when they're the aggressors, when they're the Korahors, when they're members of the Great and Abominable Church, when they're members of the rich Zoramites, when they're members of the secret band of Gadianton, when they're Lamanites, the antagonists in the Book of Mormon. not a single Mormon has ever stepped up to be the protagonist of the Book of Mormon, to follow the examples of Joseph Smith. None. Not a single Mormon. What the hell's going on? But these Mormons believe that because I'm no longer a Mormon, that my videos are kicking against the pricks to persecute the saints and to fight against God. I had one put that comment once. Mormons are unaware, or purposely unaware, of the scripture in Doctrine and Covenants, in section 18, verse 20. Contend against no church, save it be the church of the devil. Mormons just automatically assume they're in the right church. And they've been led astray by the prophets to only stop at a spiritual witness. Read, ponder, pray, get a spiritual witness, you're done. You now know. And you can go testify, false witness. Manifest the truth has been changed by Mormons in its definition. No longer is it a physical manifestation. It's now a spiritual witness. And so, yeah, that comes from Moroni, chapter 10, verses 4 and 5. 4 is where it's contained in. As Mormons are completely ignorant of the inverted pentagram. Now, I know how that can be. I just received a birthday letter from my mother, as she believed I still like chocolate cake. And yeah, that's true, but it's not my favorite anymore. That was when I was a kid. So that's the whole thing with Mormons, is they sort of tend to block out of their mind the negative. And so I'll get Mormons who say, don't you remember having a testimony? Don't you remember what it was like to go on your mission and serve the Lord? You know, that's just like my mother. Once I hit puberty, she blocked me out of her memory. Literally. And it's almost like a self-inflicted trauma that other people find out the church is wrong, false, fraudulent, criminal, and leave, but then Mormons block it out of their memory as to why they would leave. And then Mormons resort back into a comfort zone of, well, they must have stopped reading their scriptures. They must have stopped praying. They stopped going to church, that's for sure. You know, they're no longer wearing their garments. Oh no. The comment, or the context of kicking against the pricks, you'd have to understand the New Testament terminology for that. But persecuting the saints. I didn't persecute the saints when I was a Mormon. It was my bishop who persecuted me out of the church. And for what? I'm a translator of Paleo-Hebrew and Egyptian. I deciphered Paleo-Hebrew. I deciphered Egyptian petroglyphs. And the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, all the way up the top of this earthly power, persecuted me. These cyber bullies who put the thumbs down on all my videos to incite others to the hate crime refuse to accept that. Because that can't be true. This is the true church. It's the only true church. And therefore it's the only true God of the inverted pentagram. But they block that out too. And so, yes, I am fighting against the Mormon God. Contend against no church but the church of the devil. And Mormons can't understand that. That does not compute. And their brain gets fried. And they go into a state of shock. And they block it out of their memory. And they revert back to the previous spiritual witness. Because they can't handle the truth. What does it take to change the essence of a Mormon? I know exactly what happens when you're out. You go through the thinking process of, uh-oh, do I wear other underwear? I don't know, I might be cursed. But for me, I had an education in science over superstition and idolatry. Mormons haven't. That's the baggage that comes with leaving the church. And ex-Mormons have that baggage. Exmo Lex did a video yesterday, I think, or it was the day before, and I found it yesterday, where she again reminded her audience that the church is a cult, and she wasn't going to go over that again, but she wanted people to understand it's a cult, and she'd done a video about it. She's experiencing the same type of shock and trauma that Mormons are going through. That's her baggage that she's taken with her into her ex-Mormon life. But if you're going to automatically assume that because the church is not a cult and therefore I'm picking on Exmo Lex, yeah, you're a bully. You do not understand. The church is a cult. Here's the definition of a cult. Noun: supernatural, mystical, or magical beliefs, practices, or phenomena. Spiritual witness is a magical phenomena. Magical belief that you can just simply read, ponder, and pray, and you will magically get a spiritual witness. I've been going over how the whole history of Joseph Smith is coded with the Knights Templar as the key to decode Joseph Smith's history. But you've got Mark Hoffman, who came along and fooled Mormons and the prophets into thinking it was magical with a salamander. And so the church, in presenting supernatural deities and angels communicating with Joseph Smith, speaking with the dead, doing ordinances for the dead, as many Mormons say that, oh, I saw my dead ancestors as I was doing their work in the temple. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. No way to know. And so to tell other people who have not had an experience like that, that's kind of being a pretentious brat. And so yes, Satanism is also an occult, because they believe in the supernatural deity of Lucifer and have that same symbol of the inverted pentagram as their symbol. And it doesn't matter if the Church of Satan started after the church. The fact is, they took that symbol for them as well, because it comes from Isaiah, who defined it. Falling star is an inverted pentagram, refers to Lucifer. And I've gone over where the Paleo-Hebrew origin of Satan comes from. It's from the Egyptians. The one who killed the Egyptian Jesus, who's supposed to be named Emmanuel. Amen-El, the god Amen. And so if you get stuck continuing to believe that the church is just a cult, like Jim Jones. It is Jim Jones, isn't it? Not Tom Jones? No, Jim Jones, yeah. With the Jonestown Massacre, where we get the concept of don't drink the religious Kool-Aid. That was a cult. He was not a cult. He was not doing supernatural, mystical, magical practices, beliefs, phenomena. He was just talking. The church, however, is different. And so, yeah, I can understand. Ex-Mormons can't accept this. They can't accept that they were in an occult church. Is that the bass? Huh. Yeah, I'm shaking the whole earth with the loud bass. What does it take to change the essence of Mormonism? To change the essence of a Mormon? Because I've given you all knowledge about Mormonism, and I still cannot break through. And maybe that's all YouTube's fault. Maybe it's these bullies who know YouTube's new technique now, because things have changed on YouTube over time. When I first started, I eventually caught on that I could watch my own videos and the views would count. They don't do that anymore. I don't get to count my viewing of my own video. But that was changed because they found out, oh, wait a minute, we pay people for the amount of views that they get if they get to a certain number, and if people are able to watch their own video that many times, they get paid. So yeah, they changed that, and now they're offering a premium service upgrade and the partner program, where advertisers can select your video to advertise on, and both of you get paid if people click on the ads. It's ridiculous. I don't go to YouTube to look for commercials, unless it's a specific commercial that's hilarious. But not to buy things. YouTube is not my source for, I wonder what kind of never mind. And so here, the video I just did, which, Mormons have been asking this question. What are you talking about with the Book of Mormon code? It's incomprehensible. We don't understand you. So there it was. There was the explanation. I went over it with you in that video, and already there are 2 thumbs down, the typical guys, but there's only 13 views after 2 hours or so. The Mormon and ex-Mormon lawsuit against LDS Church, I went over the forums, only 28 views, 5 likes, but 3 dislikes. These Mormons are in delusional land. They don't realize they're getting conned, which I did that video. Wow, it's been a while since I did that video. The big oh no, there it is. Helping Mormons recognize when they are being deceived. That was actually the big one for yesterday. 58 views, 11 likes, but the typical 2 thumbs down. See what they're doing? They're just putting thumbs down just to persecute me, thinking that they're in the right as they're still Mormon, that I'm the enemy, I'm the bad guy. I talked about the bubble that Mormons are in because they're not watching R-rated movies. And I went over how Schindler's List helps explain what Sound of Music leaves out. Because if you just watch Sound of Music for your whole life, you have no clue how horrifying World War II's Nazi Germany was. And you will have no clue when some president comes along and gives signals to stand back and stand by to white supremacist groups, including neo-Nazis, and then incite them to attack, to insurrection. You will have no clue what to look for in the patterns. And likewise for Mormons, if you do not understand what a protection racket is, you're not going to recognize it when the prophets practice it. If you don't know what a pyramid scheme is, you're not going to recognize it when the prophets practice it. If you do not understand what a financial crime is, money laundering, tax evasion, insurance fraud, you're not going to recognize when the prophets practice it. What does it take to change the essence of a Mormon? You even have the Doctrine and Covenants passage. Let's see if I can remember what the innocent as a rabbit, wise as a serpent. Only 2. Yep, 111. Verse 11. Therefore be ye as wise as serpents, yet without sin. That's what the R-rated movie video that I did, Mormons watching R-rated movies to cure Mormonism. That's what I'm talking about. R-rated movies go into graphic detail, the violence that's involved, the level of crime that's involved, so that you may understand the enemy, that you may know the enemy. Just watching the movie does not turn you into evil. You have to believe the antagonists of the movie and say, oh, that's so cool to rob a bank. I want to rob a bank. Now you're being dumb. We see it all the time. When Bruce Willis comes out with a very popular movie, you'll see guys shave their head. The church then comes out, don't be like the world. And then the Cancer Institute comes out and says, we need men to donate their hair for cancer patients. And the church is silenced. You're not watching R-rated movies to commit sin or figure out how to commit sin. You're watching so that you can be obedient and be as wise as serpents, so that you will know when you're being conned, so that you'll know how to identify a false prophet. But what does it take to change the essence of a Mormon? When they refuse to listen. Mormons read their Book of Mormon and skip over the war section because it's too graphic. Oh, I don't like it when Coriantumr cuts off the head of Shiz, and then Shiz, without a head, tries to lift up his body and then collapses in his gore. Oh, that's horrifying. Or when the Lamanites are on the brink of completely annihilating the Nephites, and the women are being raped, and the children are being fed to the husbands are being fed to their children and wives. Yeah, you don't want to read that, do you? You don't want to understand how evil it's going to get. And so you don't listen to my warning voice, because I'm fighting against God of the inverted pentagram. What does it take to change the essence of a Mormon?